is Jay. I am the founder of both Mentor U and the Discover Year. First of all, I want to tell you why I'm here. And then I want to tell you a little bit why I think this structure, this type of program is so important for many more youth than actually know it in this present day and age. Then we're going to talk about exactly how we think we can help here at Mentor U with the Discover Year program. And of course, I'm going to tell you all the things that are involved in this new and innovative program. I'd like to start by telling you one story, and it's an event that happened to me, and I think it's very relevant because it happened to me at an age that was very similar to many of the students that are here tonight. I was 16 years old, and my parents, who are here, will know this story very well. We grew up in the West Island of Montreal, and I grew up playing hockey, competitive hockey, and when I turned 16, that was the year in Quebec that everybody tries out for midget AAA hockey. And as you can appreciate, for someone who grew up playing hockey and playing hours and hours on the outdoor rink, that was like the be-all and end-all. If you didn't make midget AAA, or if I didn't rather, that was kind of the end of the road as I knew it. That was the ultimate goal in my life to that point. So you can see where the story is going. I was the last person cut from the Lac St. Louis Lions, which is the team in our region where I was from. The last exhibition game of the last tryout, I was the last person that they let go. And of course, you can imagine I was pretty devastated. I got home. Within a few hours, the coach from Gatineau, the team here in Gatineau, the midget AAA team, he called our house. And after I heard the phone ring, my father came into my room where he found me wallowing in self-pity and tears. And he said, "Jay, that was the coach from Gatineau. And in fact, he wants you to try out for his team, because that happens just like in the NHL. When you get cut from one team, another team can pick you up." So my initial visceral response was Gatineau was like the arch enemy. Okay, these are guys that I've grown up playing with against for many years. There's no possible way that I could play for Gatineau. We were the good guys and they were the bad guys. And my father, being the wise individual that he is, he said, "Listen, Jay, just go and meet the coach. It'll take 10 minutes, hear what he has to say. If you don't want to, it's entirely your decision, but just go and hear the man out." So a few days later, I think it was, we went to Laval where that team was playing, and after the game, I met the coach, jumped on the bus, talked to him for 5 minutes. I came off the bus with the biggest smile I've ever had, as my parents would tell you, and a few days later, I was going to Gatineau, and they unloaded my stuff. I made the team. That year, I had a coach who was by far the best hockey coach I've ever had in my life. No offense, Dad. I also became fluently bilingual. I immersed myself in the French-Canadian culture. I made a ton of new friends. I learned that the color of the jersey on your back really says nothing about the character of the person that you are. I became very resilient and determined. My confidence grew leaps and bounds. And to me personally, the most important lesson that I learned that year was truly that when one door closes in life, other doors open. And we just simply have to have our eyes open and be able to walk through that door to take advantage. And that year, that 8 months that I spent in Gatineau, I honestly believe that changed my life. Because what it did was it set off it triggered a turn of events that since that time, when we talk about comfort zones, and you may have seen this graphic before, but this is probably the typical graphic for most people in their comfort zone. And since that time I spent in Gatineau, the roles kind of reversed for me, and I became very comfortable being uncomfortable. And since that time, I've done a lot of different things. As you may have guessed, I worked on cruise ships for a few years. I worked at the Vancouver Organizing Games. I visited about 140 cities across well over 30 countries around the world. And I've had a lot of really interesting experiences. Each and every one of them came because I made an important and difficult decision about stepping outside of the comfort zone. And as many of you have probably heard, psychologically, this is a really important age. For the 16, 17-year-olds, this is a really important time in your life where you have to get used to failure. And that's something that we don't talk all that much about, but it's starting to come to the forefront a little bit more. But that was critical for me to have that experience, and I grew leaps and bounds, as I mentioned. And that's what we want to impart to all of our participants at the Discover Year, is that it's okay to fail, and you want to push yourself now when you can learn the most about who you actually are. So amidst all the different things that I did, eventually, after I lived in Vancouver for a while, I came back to Ottawa. I moved to Ottawa. I'd never actually lived here before. And for the past 5 years, I have been working at the University of Ottawa. When I started there, I did recruitment. So surely many of you probably went to some of the university information programs over the past couple of weeks, the fairs. I used to do that. Now I work in the co-op office where I help students in their placements. So that's all really relevant in the last 5 years because what I saw really shaped this program as it is. And when I started in liaison, doing the recruiting, in 3 years I visited with about 12,000 parents and students and educators, mostly in Ontario, but also in BC and in Quebec. And to give you a snapshot of the type of challenge that I saw on a regular basis with students coming out of high school, I'll choose a story from a fair in Brockville, the large city metropolis of Brockville, where there was a school of about 300 or 400 students, and I was there for a fair. This was a few years ago. And within the span of 20 minutes, so the typical question, somebody comes up to the booth. If you've been to the fairs, you know the questions. And I would ask students, what do you want to do in university? And 4 students within a span of 20 minutes, when I asked them that question, told me, I want to study physics in university. Which seems, I know, alarmingly underwhelming, but that was twice the number of students in 3 years that had previously told me that they wanted to study physics. So I kind of assumed something was going on, and my first reaction with the 4th student was to ask him what his teacher was like, what his physics teacher was like in high school. And he said, oh, Mr. Thompson, he's the man. He coaches rugby. He makes learning so much fun. I love Mr. Thompson. And so that was kind of why I asked the question, because I saw that coming, and I understood very well already at that point that students tend to make arbitrary decisions when they leave high school and go into post-secondary for a number of reasons. The first is that they're just not sure what they want. So they look to the people that they really get along with, and they think, well, I like that person. They do something, I might as well do that. Or they look to their parents because that's what they know, that's what they've heard about around the dinner table for many, many years. Or they choose something that they're naturally very good at, but may or may not be interested in. When you combine all those factors with the abundance of information that both students and parents alike are sifting through in a matter of a couple of months in their grade 12 year from September until January, it's important to stop and think about the situation that student especially, the parent as well, but the student, the situation that they're in. They come into grade 12, they're 17 in most cases. They're coming in already having a lot of pressure about doing well, performing in their courses in a very demanding curriculum these days. They have their social circles that they need to be comfortable in. They may have a romantic relationship, mom and dad, as much as you may hate to admit it. They have raging hormones. They have a lot of issues going on at school, sometimes at home. They have extracurriculars, they have sports, they have music, they have volunteer hours. And oh, by the way, you have to make the biggest decision of your life probably until this point. So you could just pile that on top. And what happens is that there's so much information, and I've all been privy to the 200 post-secondary institutions, their marketing plans, their advertising. It's very, very advanced in this day and age. And nobody can sift through all that information. It's virtually impossible. So what happens, again, is students are making arbitrary decisions. That leads to students going into university right away because they feel like they have to. And 14% across Canada are dropping out before the end of the first year, post-secondary. 40% before the end of that same first year are changing programs. But no one is doing anything about this because they just think, this is the way we do it. And the problem is that it is okay, but it's not the best. So why hasn't somebody come up with the best possible solution to the problem, what I see as a big problem? And from my research, the first time that I thought of this program, I was trying to sleep about a year ago, in fact, almost exactly a year ago. Lying in bed, and I just had what they'd call a moment of clarity, an epiphany, where a lot of these ideas kind of rushed into me, into my brain. And I said, how is it possible that nobody has done this yet on this level? Because there is such a huge need. And if you talk to any guidance counselor, any teacher, they'll all tell you exactly the same thing. So I did a lot of research, and what I came up with were, basically, I identified 4 reasons, the 4 major reasons I think that people don't take the time in between high school and post-secondary, but they rush in. The first is that, very simply, parents say, no, university or college, that's the next step, that's what I'm paying for, or that's what I'm helping you with, that's where you're going. You're not sitting on the couch playing video games for the next year. My parents were the same way, of course. There was no other option. I was privileged enough to go to a great school in the States, so there really was no other option for me. Every single person I think that's ever gone to that school has gone directly to university afterwards. So the parents have a blockage because they think a year off means a year lost, and if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it, which is irrational if you actually think about it, but it still exists, and it's pervasive everywhere. The second reason, and also a very important one, is that in our society, success for someone leaving high school is post-secondary. There's no way around it. People in our day and age don't have enough time to sit down and have a conversation with everybody that's leaving high school and say, okay, what are you doing? Like, tell me about, they say, what are you doing next year? And if it's not university or college, that person has already checked out and they've made some kind of judgment and they're not really comfortable with whatever your answer is. And students feel that, parents feel that. That means it takes a really confident individual to do something different. Third reason is the cultural perception of the education as a Band-Aid, and this is something that I personally hope to tackle to some degree in the next number of years, is this debate or this fight over the fact that it's important to get your education over with. Just get it over with, get in, get out, get your degree, get your paper so you can get a job, and move on. And you hear more and more today in the media about lifelong learning, which I have since recently really understood that that's something that should be appreciated by everybody. But the problem is that students, before they get into their undergrad, many of them are thinking about, okay, this is my master's, this is my PhD, I'm going to go to med school, I'm going to go to law school. What do I have to do? They work backwards for the 7 years, and they basically, those 7 years are a blur to those students, and anybody who's a little bit older will tell them, and they do, that these are the best years of your lives. But everyone's still rushing through because they want to buy the house, they want to buy the car, they want to be successful. They want to have the title, and they keep pushing through, but it's not working. And it's in fact taking most people longer to get through their education because they simply don't know what they want to do. The last reason, and I think actually the most, the strongest reason why nobody is doing a gap year or a structured gap year, because they simply don't exist until now. So there really hasn't been any program that's been available, especially in Ottawa, to students where they can take a year off but not sit on the couch, where they can get involved and find out about those things and be part of a larger community that's going to support them and help them grow in those things that really are intrinsically motivating to them. How we can go about helping your children and the students that are here is through three core principles, three core values that were used to establish both Mentor U and Discover Year, which are action, openness, and authenticity. Action, because it's really important to get out there and try things, because as an example, today I was at Nepean High School, and they had a grad assembly, and I spoke to the graduates, the grade 12 graduates-to-be, for 5 minutes. And the first question I asked them is, I said, show of hands, how many people here know exactly what they want to be when they grow up? The vast majority, right? So I'd say it was about 60%. 60% of kids said, oh, dude, I'm going to be a vet, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. Hey, we all know. We are part of the 7% of people who leave high school and by the age of 25 are still doing what they thought they'd be doing at 17. At 7%. 93% of 17-year-olds are going to be doing something totally different than what they thought they would be when they're 25. What we're seeing in students is people think this is a cool program, but in fact, they don't think it pertains to them because they think they know exactly what they want, and that's fine, and everyone will figure it out at their own pace. But the statistics show that students need to take action. They need to figure out what they want to do because they simply haven't seen enough at the age of 17. They just haven't seen enough. They haven't been exposed. It's impossible. Regardless of how many extracurriculars and regardless of how many places you've lived, you simply haven't seen enough. That's the fact. So the best example that I can use to demonstrate this is through my current day job at the University of Ottawa in co-op, where I meet regularly with students in their co-op placements. I meet with them to talk about how things are going and to help coach them on potential next steps in their career and their studies. And it's pretty typical to meet a student, and we see them through the progression, which is great. So in their first placement, 4 months, a student, let's say I meet them and they're working at Canada Revenue Agency. And I meet them and I say, oh, hey, Sarah, how's it going? Oh, Jay, this is awesome. I love CRA. I'm going to work here for sure. There's no question. I love it here. It's the best. And then I meet them 8 months later in their second work term, and they're working at BlackBerry. Oh, no, Jay, forget about it. CRA is not for me. I love BlackBerry. Like, guaranteed this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. I can't wait to just settle in here, and I'm going to be good. And the same thing happens in the third and the fourth if they do different things in each co-op term. And to kind of start to appreciate the fact that students are very motivated and excited and enthusiastic, but they really just haven't tried enough things yet. That's why we want to encourage students to get out there and try anything that piques their curiosity, which is why we emphasize openness as well. I don't know how familiar many of you are, but there's a lot of research that's been done recently around open networks. And the research shows, so open networks alludes to people that both in their professional lives and in their personal lives, they have a wide variety of people that they're in touch with regularly. And these people are not all from the same career, not from the same background or perspective, or don't share all the same perspectives or interests, but rather they're just something, there's a person that has something in common with you. So you get along with them, and you hang out with them, or you work with them. And the research that comes back shows from these open networks, so they took the top 1% most successful people. And they said, what are the commonalities between all of these people? What are they all doing the same way? And the research shows that all these people have what they call open networks. And I don't know exactly how they define it, but the point being is that they hang out and they work with people with a lot of different interests and backgrounds, beliefs. So the poster child for this research often tends to be one individual who, at a very young age, he was walking down the street, and down the sidewalk, and a friend of his, and he came upon a computer. And they stopped at the computer for whatever reason. They were just out walking, probably going to the candy store or whatever it was. But they stopped and they saw the computer, and they said, oh, that's kind of cool. And they knocked on the door, and they asked if they could have it, because whoever had it didn't want it anymore. So they took the computer home. They started taking it apart. They put it back together, took it apart, put it back together. Over the years, they grew a collection of a lot of different computers. And by the time they were of age to go to university, this individual started a university program. I believe it was computer science. Did that for one semester and said, nope, this is not for me, I don't belong here, and dropped out. But he didn't go home and sit on the couch. He was walking by a calligraphy class one day, just so happened, and he stopped in and he said hello, and he ended up doing a calligraphy course for the next semester, where he became very good friends with the professor. And after that, he decided to travel a little bit. He worked on an apple orchard where he lived and worked, and of course where he came up with the iconic emblem for what would become one of the most successful companies of all time. And throughout this whole journey, he really had this fascination with music. He loved music, all kinds of different music, and he always allowed himself to explore all the options in the musical realm. And as you can probably guess, this individual is Steve Jobs, and many of you have probably seen the biography. But the point here is, because he was open to whatever piqued his interest, eventually, as I mentioned earlier, the dots connected in a very real way. And the point of all the open network research is that those individuals, rather than pigeonholing themselves right from the age of 18, those that leave the parameters open a little bit more actually set themselves up for much greater long-term success, which I think Steve Jobs is a good example of how that happens. And that's what we encourage in all of our participants, or we will be encouraging all participants, to get involved in anything that piques your curiosity, and do not worry about the immediate next step. In another body of research, again, looking at the people that are the most successful across the world, what are they doing that's the same? What are they saying? And that top 1% of people that are successful, every single one of them says, I would do this for free, but that's because I love it. And that's why authenticity is so important, not because of the dollar figure that comes along with it, but that eventual point. For me, that point is right now, tonight, because everything that I did and every time that I questioned myself over the last 17 years, even though I knew that the light at the end of the tunnel was coming, it was always difficult decisions to get to the top and start over, so to speak, in different careers. But now is when it's paying off, and I know there's a few people in this room right now that can attest to how great it feels when you start to feel like you're fulfilling your potential, which is how I feel. And if I could only impart that to everybody here, I can't even express, and many of you also may recognize what that feels like. But it's really important to love what you do, and we hear that, but it's often rhetoric, and we're here to help, actually tangibly help young adults get to their passion, and we'll help coach them through it. So I bet you're wondering what exactly the program entails, and that's what I'm going to tell you now. So the program would be set to begin next August. So we're looking for candidates right now who are between 18 and 20 at the end of 2016. So you could potentially start the program as a 17-year-old. But the way it'll work is, in August, we will welcome everybody in, and we'll start the job search. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But then the first work phase, there will be two distinct work phases of the program, one from September to January, and the other one from March until July. In between those two work terms, you'll be traveling for 1 month to a destination or multiple destinations of your choice. And then you'll come back in between, you'll do another work term, and then you'll be working on a collaborative project throughout the entire year in smaller groups within the participants, and you'll deliver that community service-oriented project in August, exactly basically 1 year after you started the program. To give you a little bit more details about each individual phase, so the job search, if you're wondering how we're going to help students get to where they need to be, because a lot of parents are concerned about what type of job or how the student is going to be able to get a job. So we're going to start with helping the students with their CVs and cover letters, the obviously basic parameters that are important for students to be able to go out and get jobs. It's also to be noted that these are paid positions. So the goal is that the students make money, right? So that you're not paying for everything for them all the time to the parents. So we'll help them with their CVs and their cover letters. We'll also teach them important skills like networking and how to approach a potential employer, how to sell yourself. We'll get them to work on their elevator pitch, which we all know is very important in today's very quick environment. And then we'll introduce them actually to a number of different employers that are interested in hiring students just like them. So we'll already go out and collect a number of different job descriptions, create those relationships with potential employers. and we'll introduce them to each other and hopefully get some students a match for 2 distinct work placements, different types of work so that they can try different things out in the 2 semesters. And a lot of students ask, well, I have a particular interest in studying or in working in this domain or that domain. That's fine as well. We'll ask students before they enter the program what type of work they'd like to be working in. And if that type of job doesn't exist in our bank of employers, then we'll help you. We'll guide you. You'll have to do the research, but we'll help you. We'll support you in that process. During the work terms, so for a total of about 41 weeks, the participants, will be expected to work probably about 30 hours a week. So it's a 4-day work week expected. If the student wants to work more, then they're more than welcome to do that if they want to work weekends. But 4 days a week they work. 1 day a week they come for team meetings, for the Discover Your team meetings, which will be held at Pineview Golf and Conference Center. But 1 day every week, those students, the participants, will come, they'll get together, and we'll do a number of things. In the morning, we'll do crucial skills workshops. So employers today are talking about how students are coming even out of their undergraduate programs without the acceptable skills that are required in today's job market. We're going to work on those. We're going to introduce the students to a huge array of different professionals and people that will help coach them and provide them with advice and knowledge about their different professions so students can really dig in and understand what do you do in all these different professions. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have group discussions that will revolve around post-secondary. We'll talk about the collaborative projects. We'll talk about things to come, as well as review some of the material that we saw in the morning. And students will have some research and reading and self-reflection exercises to do on their own, of course, on their own time as well. So the crucial skills workshops, every morning on the team meeting days, they'll run 2 to 3 hours. And again, as I mentioned, these are skills that employers really are emphasizing. So employers are saying today, graduates need to have better communication skills, they need to be better problem solvers, they need to be more creative, and they need to be able to work in a multicultural environment. So the first thing that we're going to do, one of the first things, is we're going to work on communication. So the students will get a public speaking workshop, they'll get a workshop on active listening and interpersonal communications. They'll learn about conflict resolution, crisis management. We're also going to talk about finances, as every parent I'm sure is very enthusiastic to hear. The intention of this program is to create young adults that are financially accountable for themselves. We're going to talk with them about budgeting for post-secondary. We're going to talk about how you can actually start saving for your retirement in your 20s. We're also going to talk about entrepreneurship, which is, as many of you already know, it's a hot-button topic in today's society. Whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not, employers are saying, we want people with entrepreneurial skills. So we'll talk about building a business plan. We'll talk about networking, all the skills, problem solving, curiosity, teamwork, leadership, all those things that are important in the workplace, but fine-tuned for entrepreneurship. We'll also talk about what it means to be part of a high-performing team. And for those students that maybe instinctively understand what it means to be part of a team, we'll help them hone their skills so they can work best to the best of their ability with other people. We'll also emphasize healthy living. So the approach to this program is one of positive psychology. So we'll help students with nutrition and active living, mental health, but it'll all be geared towards a very positive approach to psychology. So over the lunch, many of you are probably familiar with the term lunch and learn, which we see in the workplace quite a bit. So the career panels that happen over lunch, those are effectively what they are. They're lunch and learns, where we will invite the committee members and other people that are still going to be added to the committee. We'll have themed weeks. So 1 week will be entrepreneurship, 1 week will be financial services, 1 week will be law, 1 week will be the sciences, 1 week will be event management. We'll even have some professional athletes that will be involved. And every week the students can really understand what the options are in that field. So if they know that they like science, they'll meet someone who's a scientist for Health Canada. They'll meet somebody who's a doctor. They'll meet someone who's a physiotherapist. They'll meet a nurse. They'll start to really begin to understand what a day-to-day job looks like for all those people, which they simply don't have the time to do in advance of graduating high school in most cases. And as you may have seen if you've been on the website, these are amazing people. Of course, most of them come from my own personal network, so I'm biased. But you can ask around. These are really phenomenal people. And those individuals will remain available for what I call multi-level mentorship, which means that if a participant met Billy, and they said, Billy, I know that you run your own business. I'm interested maybe in running my own business one day. Can I maybe have a coffee with you? So Billy would be available at some point down the road to have a coffee or a Skype chat or a phone call, just to help that student really dig a little bit deeper and understand what is involved in that realm, and also to start making connections and building their network, as my father expressed many, many, many times, and I'm happy that he did. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's actually a tweaked photograph from a classroom where I went to high school in New Hampshire. The school is called Phillips Exeter Academy. Of all the things that I'm lucky for in life, the opportunity to go to this school was among the top, I'd say, after my friends and family. We're going to use the Harkness method, which was created at Phillips Exeter, and what that means is it's a Socratic style of education where rather than a teacher giving a lecture, as I am doing right now, the group members sit around a table and they discuss. So the teacher acts more of as a facilitator than a teacher, an instructor themselves. And this will be in the afternoon, so we'll have groups of 10 to 12 participants that will be together. We'll have the group of 30 or 40 that are involved in the program broken down into smaller groups. And these students will have an opportunity to build their debate and communication skills, to really think critically and understand logical reasoning and start working on all those things and talking about post-secondary and talking about all the things that they learn in the morning and just fostering good communication moving forward. One day every month, we're going to have individual coaching sessions. And this is something that I hadn't mentioned yet. But as you can imagine, students at this age need a lot of guidance. They're at a point where the point of this program is for us to help them figure out what they want to do. So one day every month, they'll have access to some amazing people, myself included. We will each coach them for 10 sessions over the span of the year. We'll start by finding out who that person is. We'll identify what's important to them through inventories and questionnaires. What are their actual interests? What are their values? What are they good at? We'll start working with that information to build them a plan of action that they'll end up having something concrete at the end of the year saying, I don't know where I'm going to end up in 30 years, but I know what my next step is. And now I know what's important to me. And this coaching is really, really important part of the program. In between those two work terms, as I mentioned, this whole team meeting thing happens in the two work terms. In between those two, there's a travel component for 1 month. And as I mentioned, I alluded to earlier, it's important that students are not prescribed a trip. So we're not saying, everybody get on the bus, we're going to wherever it is to do some humanitarian work. You have the opportunity as a participant to decide what you want to do and where you want to go. It has to be educational, but you can decide to go anywhere you want, either in a group, in a structured format, or off on your own, if you're confident enough, or you can go with a buddy. There's a lot of different options. Our role at Discover Year will be to help provide you with the resources so that you can do the research and book the trips and look into things that actually are important to you. So throughout this whole process, of course, minus the time that the participants will be traveling, they're going to be working on a collaborative project. And with the same theme in mind, the students are not going to be prescribed a particular charitable donation or some type of work that they're encouraged to do. It's up to them how they want to contribute to their community. So at the outset of the program, every participant will be encouraged to do a little bit of research and think about what they're passionate about. What is a social cause that they'd like to have an impact on? And they'll have an opportunity each to pitch their ideas to the group. And at some point we'll form, probably around mid-year, we'll form a number of different teams, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in each team, depending on what the interests are. And those people, from that point forward, will be a team. And they'll work on this collaborative project. They'll develop and they'll implement that plan 1 year after they've started. And that can be in a variety of different ways. It could be any number of different projects. It will help them, guide them through the process, but this is where they're really going to learn to hone their leadership skills and feel that they did something really positive for the community. So the financial model that we've built for the program is one of the things, again, one of the many things, as we're learning, that sets this program apart from every other program. So if you've looked around, and guidance counselors certainly know this information, but typically for a year-long program that is a structured gap year, will run you anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000. Granted, there are very few in Canada. Those that have started and sometimes, in some cases, failed, and others that are still running, they're still operational, between $10,000 and $20,000 for a year. As you can likely see here, we're offering the Discover Year for $3,000. But we're anticipating that the travel component will cost about $3,000 or $4,000. So that means that the participant has about $6,000 to $7,000 worth of expenses, assuming they're living at home and they're not paying rent, etc. They're anticipated to make between $13,000 and $15,000 over their 2 work terms, if they work 30 hours a week or 10 months. That means that they're going to come out $7,000 or $8,000 on top, but you have an opportunity to save a significant portion of your first year of post-secondary studies. The reason that we are able to offer such a cost is because of some of the amazing people that are here with you right now, myself included, who are all volunteers to this point and will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. But because we have many, many people that are helping out with the project, we can keep the administrative costs low, and we can make this program accessible across all socioeconomic levels. And we have parents, of course, that always say, that's really nice, Jay, but I know I'm going to pay for it anyways. It's not expected that parents are going to be covering the participants' fees. Support them at home and in their lives, but it's expected that they learn financial accountability. So there's a $600 deposit, non-refundable deposit, that would be due if you want to accept and reserve your place in the program. But after that, the students will be paying on monthly installments. So 8 monthly installments of $300. Very feasible when you're making a few $1,000s a month, hopefully, or close to that. When does all this stuff start happening? So we're going to keep things in line with the Ontario University's application center just to keep it fairly simple, but we'll give it a little bit of a lag. So basically we're operating more or less 1 week behind the typical university admission cycle. So our first round of admissions is going to be due January 20th, and it's an important date to keep in mind because we may or may not fill up the entire number of seats available in the program by the end of the first round. So it's suggested that you get your application in before January 20th. It's also important to note that this is not a check yes or no application. This is going to be, we're going to request the student's information. They're going to have to write a personal statement. There will be 2 references involved, and then there will be an interview phase as well. So as you can see, we're pretty particular about who we're going to accept into this group, but we're not particular on how smart that individual is or what their grades were in high school. We're particular about how they're going to contribute to the group and how motivated they are to see themselves grow and to help others grow around them. And then in May, we're going to continue taking applications. So after January 20th, if you want to get your application in, that's fine, but it'll be on a rolling basis, no guarantees. But we'll continue accepting applications, and we're hoping that everyone be admitted to the program by mid-June, and we'll understand exactly what the group looks like. This is just to give you an idea about our website. If you haven't been on the MentorU website yet, you can see that the Discover Your tab is right there in the middle. There's lots of information. Of course, it is something that's very particular, this type of program, so you can go on and check it all out. Strongly encourage you to subscribe to our newsletters and our information that's going to be coming up, and we'll identify all the important dates. We'll let you know when the admissions, the application is actually online. C'est aussi important à noter que si jamais nous avons des francophones dans la salle, le programme devrait être bilingue en principe. Of course, it's the first year we're offering the program one step at a time. It's an English program as it stands, but the majority of our committee members are bilingual, myself included, and we would love to see Francophone students involved that are bilingual. The workshops and the career panels will likely be in English, but every other aspect of the program can be done in French. So if you're a French student and you're wondering about that, it's absolutely available to Francophone students as well. So it's also important, I think, that I tell you why, for the students that are here tonight, why I think that this program is great for you and why I think you should do it. And there's 3 reasons for that. And those are pride, people, and greatness. Pride because across the last 17, 18 years in my life, since I've really understood what it means to feel pride, and I've had accomplishments and promotions and championships, nothing in my life comes close to the times when I'm on campus at UOttawa and there's a student that runs up to me and says, Jay, you probably don't remember me, but we met a couple years ago at a fair in Toronto. And you actually took about an hour to speak to me at the end of that fair, and the advice and the information that you provided was hugely helpful. I'm now here at the University of Ottawa doing something that I love, and I'm really flourishing. And I owe part of that to you because I came on your advice. And that lights a fire. I know it's cheesy. I mean, I know it's cheesy, but it's the reality, and I told you already I can't fake it. So that pride that I feel, and I know that all of our other committee members, when I asked them to be part of this, that's why they said yes as well. We're there to help, and I know it'll be different for every person that comes into the program, but I also know that you'll end up well in advance of where you are now. So the second reason is the people. And as you would have seen on the website, and the number is growing every week, but there's about 70 people that are involved in the program right now that, as I mentioned, are all doing so on a volunteer basis. And it's unfathomable to me, knowing these people, that a young adult would say, no, I'm good, thank you. I don't really need the advice of these people who are self-made entrepreneurs and scientists and lawyers and doctors and professors. I think I'm good. I don't need their advice. It's honestly unfathomable to me because I know the people. And that asset that you have in front of you is immense, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. The third thing is greatness. One of my favorite quotes is, "Don't be afraid to leave the good to go for the great." And that's exactly what we want to encourage every participant to do with the Discover Year. We want them to say, okay, this is good. I'm comfortable here. I like it. My life is good. It's acceptable. But I want to put myself on a limb. I really want to go for the greatness. And that's what we're here to help those students do, to build the confidence and the skill set and to understand themselves so that they can actively pursue those things that are intrinsically motivating to them. And I honestly believe, although the numbers here tonight wouldn't prove this year to be the case necessarily, in 20 or 30 years, I honestly believe that Discover Year and similar programs will be the thing. This will be the best option. It will no longer say, oh, I don't understand what that is. I just need to go to university. It will be, oh, Discover Year? Wow, that's amazing. That's life-changing. I want to be a part of that. And I think, personally, it would just be really cool to be a part of that. And for those innovators that are out there, it's obviously a leap of faith. It's something that's very new, but I think it's worthwhile. And they say a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are made for, right? So we're encouraging you to set sail and come and join us at the Discover Year.